What?
Subscribe.
We'll highlight all that. Don't you worry.
Just
But of
saying,
course,
you gotta remind people.
Subscribe right now.
Subscribe.
subscribe. Of course.
Philadelphia, baby, you're gonna love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
Hello, friends. Welcome into Get in the Hole. Steve McAvoy joined alongside me, Ethan Hogan, and Ben Pirro for another big time Monday in the golf world. Live from the Underground, part of Underground Sports Philadelphia, streaming live on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, and of course, wherever you can get your favorite podcasts, we are there. And of course, this show and every show, as we bring you all of the news, betting tips, and analysis from across the PGA Tour, LIVGolf Tour, LPGA, and beyond in the golfing space. We are sponsored by our friends over at Paramount Plus. It's March. The calendar has turned over. My favorite time of the year for more than just one reason. Of course, we have great golf happening in the Arnold Palmer this week. We have the Players coming up. The Masters is around the corner come April. But with everything else going on, as we head towards the NBA playoff race, the NHL playoff race, spring training is in full swing, but we also have March Madness. And on Paramount Plus, you can get in on all the action and stream college basketball on CBS Live with the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan. Get started today with the code and link in our description. Stream college basketball on CBS Live with Paramount Plus and the Showtime plan. Of course, Underground Madness. Shout out to Xavier, as they are currently on the last four in line to play the play-in against Baylor. Hopefully, me and Ethan's Quinnipiac Bobcats can pull through in the MAC tournament, which they never actually do. Ed could possibly make a run in their first ever tournament appearance, only to play Cooper Flag and Duke. What a world we live in, right?
Easy win.
Easy win. Hey, look, if they end up making it and they can beat Duke, then they got to beat, I think, like Purdue. And if they can beat Purdue, at that point, it's like St. Peter's 2022 all over again.
Real quick, I just find it so funny how you're like going through all these hypotheticals. Meanwhile, at least for the Big East, Xavier has 2 regular season games left. And then we have the entire Big East tournament, which a lot can happen. I mean, Georgetown, when Patrick Ewing was the coach, won the Big East tournament, and they were the second worst team in the Big East. So, like, so much can happen. Let's just hey,
look, you find yourself in a very different spot than we do, right? Because you getting to be a fan of a Big East school, having attended there. You have an opportunity to be a automatic qualifier, win or without the tournament any given year, right? This year it's obviously different as it usually is because the Big East is stacked. But like Quinnipiac can only ever get into the dance if they win the tournament, and they never actually end up doing it. For the last 3 or 4 years pre Pitino to St. John's, he was coaching Iona, and they were absolutely insane. And I remember covering Quinnipiac in 2021 during COVID, and there's nobody in this gigantic arena. And you just hear Pitino screaming at his players. And I'm like, this guy coaches at Iona? The guy who was formerly at Louisville and Kentucky? Like, this guy, like, he was insane.
And Providence, yeah.
Providence. Like, I saw Rick Pitino in Atlantic City bringing his team to a strip club after they won the MAC tournament. It was the funniest thing ever.
Crazy. Oh my God.
Like, top 5 moment of my entire life. Now you see him in the all-white suit, like he's the fucking the leader of the mob in Manhattan, beating up on UConn in a regular season game. It's going to be amazing to watch St. John's play. But again, like, you have the opportunity to get into the field without winning the tournament. We need to win every single year. For some reason, it just never works out. And again,
I understand
when St. Peter's made it. I think they were like the 5 or 6 seed, I think, in the MAC tournament, and they ended up going to the Elite 8.
All right. I understand that you guys okay. I understand that you guys have to win. What I'm saying, though, is that you're going through all these hypothetical projections of who we're going to play in this round. Then this round, we're going to play this team. Then this round, we're going to play this team. Those projections, there's a reason why no one ever is successful with their brackets, because it's one game and there's so much that can happen. I mean, your best 2 players can have awful games. I mean, remember that Kentucky team when they had Wall, Boogie Cousins, and who was the other?
Who was big?
he played on the Suns. He played for the Bucks. I'm forgetting his name.
You're gonna maybe
Chris
pull it up
Middleton?
now.
No, not Chris
no, it was a long time
Middleton.
ago. What year was that? Was that 09?
I think it was 09 because Wall was a rookie in 10.
Eric Bledsoe.
Eric Bledsoe. They ran into West Virginia, and West Virginia is not much of a basketball school. They didn't have any NBA prospects. And Kentucky had a terrible game. They didn't make I don't think they made a single three the entire game because they weren't a good shooting team, and they lost. And so there's so much that can happen you're just going through these projections, and you're just going to make yourself so dizzy when they're never right anyway. It's not a knock on you. It's just that it's literally 40 minutes, and that's it.
Yeah,
That's why Virginia can lose in the round of 32. That's why Kentucky would be one and done, 3 years in a row, it felt like, because there's so much that can happen.
All I'm saying is the road to the dance is win the MAC tournament, win a play-in game, and then you get to play Duke and get fucking walloped probably.
You could be, what was it, St. Francis? What was that team in Jersey?
Fairleigh Dickinson.
St. Peter's.
Oh, well, yes. Also from the MAC, yes.
Yeah, they're also in the MAC.
You could be a Cinderella story like them. You have to be a little less cynical, Steve. You're a little bit of a cynical sports fan.
Can you blame me? I'm a Giants and a Mets fan. And a Knicks fan who've been terrible my entire existence until now. You can blame all that on ownership, though, at least. Yeah, but you know what it is? I think amongst everything, and you can commiserate as a Jets fan, being a Mets fan just alone, being a Jets fan or a Mets fan, you take this cynical part of your soul and it just consumes everything. Like Kodai Senga, I think threw 2 innings and now it's tendonitis, and I'm like, well, he's cooked. Here we go. He's fucking done.
Well, because here's the thing, though. The thing with the Jets, and I've said this to people before, I don't even watch the Jets anymore because they're just unwatchable, and their offense is just, it's nauseating. It's their offense is, pun intended, quite offensive. And so with the Mets, at least they have guys who can play, and they've done it for a long time, and they're also at key positions. Whereas the key position is in football is the quarterback, and the Jets don't have a quarterback. And so I always have hope for the Mets, but when it comes to my teams, I sit there and my other teams, I'm just the Jets don't have a quarterback and they have a terrible owner. They're not going to be any good. The Islanders, I love my Islanders, but they're known for playing kind of slow and boring hockey. And so their ceiling is first round playoff exit, unfortunately. And then the Nets are the Nets.
The Nets will never achieve anything stable for the remainder of their existence until they move back to New Jersey and go back.
If they couldn't get it done with KD, Kyrie, and James Harden, I don't think
they played 11 games combined.
I know, yeah.
Those three guys, and that was never going to work because you have Kyrie who doesn't play defense, James Harden who doesn't play defense.
We also just had too many drama queens on the team. Kyrie would just sit out of games. Same with James Harden. James Harden just gained weight to get off a team. I will
never, just lazy.
I will never forget, and I will always be so proud of this. First of all, the case study that needs to be written about the Brooklyn Nets and having the team they had is never ever make it. I remember I got so much shit in college on my radio show. I think my junior year happened or my senior year. I said once James Harden got traded, I'm like, this team will never make it deep in the playoffs. If anything, they are at most a second round exit team. And everyone was like, oh, how can you say that? And my whole argument was just that James Harden's a ball hog, so is KD, and Kyrie Irving believes that the Earth's flat. That alone just tells me that I cannot trust either any of these guys to play prominent basketball for a 30-day stretch in the playoffs.
Well, the problem. See, here's the thing though with these super teams, and you're seeing it in Phoenix right now. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's these rosters are so poorly constructed, and you pay the majority of your money to 3 guys, but you have 12 other spots on your roster to fill. And so what the Nets did was they went after buyout guys like Blake Griffin who couldn't jump anymore. They went after these guys.
Hey, Blake Griffin was great for the Celtics when he was on our team. He couldn't jump, but he could shoot the 3. He's got a good jump shot now.
Well, he isn't. Well, he retired. So
I know. But like when he was playing at the end, he had a good
But-
jump shot. He just couldn't jump.
But the
But,
thing
like,
is,
you make a great
these
point.
teams now
Yeah.
are so poorly constructed, these dream teams, because they can't fill out the roster properly, and then they lack the necessary parts, like guys that can actually defend the wing, guys that can actually shoot threes, like spot up 3-point shooters, guys that can defend down low. Like there is something to be said for teams who have like a legitimate big man who can stand there underneath the basket and play defense. Like that is a real thing still in the NBA, even though most fans don't want to believe it. What's the biggest knock with the Lakers right now? Where's your big man? Where's your prominent big man? They don't really have one. Like that's going to really hurt them.
Yeah. No, and I could bring KB from backstage to talk about this one too. Like the Sixers in 2018, they had Simmons before he just completely fell off the cliff. Embiid, Harris, they had Covington for a bit. They had Dario Saric, and then they traded away Covington and somebody else. I think it was Saric for Butler, and they had no bench, and nothing ever worked. And they dropped out of the playoffs in the second round. Possibly even might have missed the playoff outright. The Knicks are in the same hole right now. Thibodeau only plays his top 5 or 6 guys. The other issue is and to quote Miracle, all-star teams only try and win on talent alone. There's no cohesion. That was the Nets. They had no cohesion. There was 3 players who were all really good but couldn't play together. Bradley Beal can't play with Booker, who can't play with Durant, and can't play with Chris Paul. So what do? They deal Chris Paul away. They bought in Beal. They tried to make all these things happen. Like I even said it with the Spurs, right? Chris Paul and De'Aaron Fox and Wembanyama. It's a great trio now. I don't think you can have all 3 of those guys on the same roster, even with how Paul's older and is aging out of the league. All-star teams, you can't win games on talent alone. You need some form of cohesion. Anyhow, we're digging into basketball when we have a lot of golf to cover. Anyways, with this with my ad read that we went on a tangent on, Underground Madness is also starting up. Ben just discovered for the first time that for the last 5 years we've been doing this on our program. Ben might fill out his bracket this year finally in our big group. So of course, get in on the Underground Madness along with watching and streaming college basketball on Paramount Plus with the Showtime plan. We start off a big loaded show here on Get in the Hole with our shout outs because we have a big time second half interview, which, spoiler alert for all of you who do not follow us on social media, executive director of the Truist Championship, Joie Chitwood, stopped into the show. I interviewed him earlier in the week. He will be in on the second half of the program. Maybe the coolest guy I've ever talked to in my entire life. And I've spoken to some really, really interesting people. Joie Chitwood is a phenomenon of a man. He said it best. Who let a former race car driver in Kearney run the Truist Championship and the President's Cup? It's beyond him. He was a tremendous guest, so tune into that in the second half of the show. We begin with our shout-outs of the week, and we dig in our heels into the golf week with Joe Highsmith, who, I don't know if you guys saw the tweet. Joe Highsmith is one of like 5 players on tour who wears the bucket hat with Joel Damon and Peter Malnati. The Titleist bucket hats are so big, like they go to like almost like a shoulder length. Someone put a video on Twitter and it was Joe Highsmith walking up to the podium with this like big straw hat that was like covering his entire body. Joe Highsmith takes home the Cognizant Classic at the Palm Beaches. A crazy story. He finished in the top 10 after day 1. He went 2 over on day 2. Ended up making the cut on the number at 4 under par. From there, won the tournament with back-to-back rounds of 64. Ben, a little trivia for you. He's the 6th player to win after making the cut on the number. Can you tell me the last player to win a tournament after making the cut on the number? It happened in 2016.
Brant Snedeker at the Farmers.
There you go, Brant Snedeker. It's also the largest final round comeback of 4 strokes since a certain player in 2024.
Wait, say that again? Sorry.
It's the largest final round comeback by strokes since this player at an event last year. You know,
how many strokes did he come back from?
He came back from 5. Highsmith came back from 4. So it's the
Scotty
largest
Scheffler.
since then.
Scotty
Scotty Scheffler at the 2024 Players. Highsmith also shot the lowest 72-hole score at the Cognizant since it been moved to PGA National in 2007. So a insane week from Joe Highsmith. He, of course, gets his exemptions to 2027. He will be at the Masters this year. When asked in an interview, what's more special to you, making a 2-year exemption on tour, getting to play the Open, or getting to play the Masters, he said he's been to the Masters once as a spectator. He played with a member once, and he spectated once in college. He attended a event. He said nothing's more special than being able to play in the Masters come April. So congratulations to Joe Highsmith for his big-time first win on tour and a bucket hat that will live on in infamy for a long time at the Palm Beaches.
Okay, shout out to Luke Clinton, the FSU junior. Made the cut with ease to earn his 20th point to earn his PGA Tour card through PGA Tour U. Clinton finished tight for 18th to earn his 6th top 25 finish of his career in just 12 PGA Tour starts. That kid's a star in the making. He is good. If I were him, I would probably just pack up my apartment at Florida State, and I would just say sayonara, and I would I'd get on tour immediately. That's incredible.
Yeah, dude. This kid
he's finished in the top 25 in half of his events. And he's baller. I don't even know if he's 21.
He is 21. He's
21.
Yeah, as of November.
Yeah. Okay. That's incredible. That's wild.
It's funny because we talk about the young guys who come up through the system, right? When Morikawa and Hovland and Matt Wolff all came up, they were 25 years old. They were middle of the way to 30. Ludwig Ober comes in, he's 24. Asher Batia comes in, he's 25. He's 21 years old. You don't see this ever. You see it a lot more often, obviously, on the LPGA tour, just because those girls are also turning pro at 14, or they can leave college after a year or two. To be able to, in 12 starts, finish in the top 25 half the time, he got all 20 of his points in a year and a half. That's faster than anybody else has ever done in the history of PGAU. Granted, it's only been around for 3 years, but he's played in the U.S. Open. He's number one currently in the World Amateur Golf rankings. He's won 3 amateur titles, and at some really challenging golf courses. His first ever career win in college came at Seminole Golf Club, which is an insane course to play, which we'll talk about Seminole on the other side for a short bit. He is an absolute beast of a player. He's won at Pinehurst. He's won at the Country Club of Charleston. He's won at places that even pros struggle to achieve great things at. It's a phenomenal story for Luke Clinton to get his card. He, I think, is officially eligible at the end of the academic year. So once he graduates in May, or once he finishes the year in May, he could turn pro and forego his final year of college to then go pro. So we'll be seeing Luke Clinton on course. I think might be seeing him as early, depending on if he can get an exemption, maybe get to the Truist. You very well might be able to see him in Philadelphia, which would be an awesome sight to be able to follow Luke Clinton if that comes around. We have, I put this in late, so I don't have a slug for it, but I want to give a shout out to Justin Suh, who this week won the Visa Argentina Open. Of course, was a tour member, I believe 2 years ago, lost his tour card very early in his career, has been grinding on the Korn Ferry Tour to get back. He has 3 wins over the last 2 years since joining the Korn Ferry Tour. This event gets him exemptions into the Open this year. He had a great early career at USC. He ended up going pro after he graduated after 4 years there, and just wasn't able to get his footing. After his first few weeks on tour, he was really good. Wasn't able to find his footing, though, late. Ended up losing his card, and now has been able to grind back. He said this might be the best moment of his life, being able to know that he could finally get to play the Open for the first time. So good on Justin Suh. Proud of him for what he's been able to achieve, and hopefully he can grind back the PGA Tour sometime soon.
Farewell to the Puerto Rico Open Monday qualifier. This week marks the final week of Monday qualifying for the Puerto Rico Open. one of the few opposite field events on the PGA Tour that has seen young and promising PGA Tour talent break out, such as Victor Hovland, Tony Finau, Akshay Bhatia, Bryson DeChambeau, Jason Day, and Jordan Spieth. This is unfortunately part of the movement, which Steve and I have discussed until we've been just, what's the phrase, blue in the face?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty sad, because this is taking opportunities away from players who are looking for different ways to get on tour, different ways to get tour starts. And pretty shocking that really, because they call this like the island tour, like when they play the Puerto Rico, Punta Cana, those events down in the Caribbean. Pretty shocking that they would get rid of the Monday for that. Not really sure what the logic is behind it. Obviously, I don't agree with it. We've discussed that ad nauseum, but nonetheless, a lot of the game's brightest stars from at a young age played in this event and played well. They didn't necessarily win, but they played very, very well, and it was almost seen as a proving ground, that event. You could kind of cut your teeth as a young tour player, even if Jordan Spieth wasn't even a tour member when he finished tied for second there. His first quote-unquote year on the PGA Tour. It wasn't considered an official year until he won the John Deere later that year. Yeah, it really is a shame. So I don't really have a whole lot to add to it. You and I have discussed that topic enough, I think, at this point.
No,
I think it's just a disservice to the next generation of golfers and the golfers who are trying to just get whatever starts that they can. I really think it's just a disservice.
So like they ended the Monday a few weeks ago at the Waste Management, which to a degree I get it's probably going to be a signature event soon enough on tour, but this kind of pissed me off and it rubbed me the wrong way, knowing that it's an opposite field event. And this goes back to, and we could probably talk about this forever, but this week going into the Arnold Palmer, Jordan Spieth and Ricky Fowler didn't get sponsor exemptions to play. And Jordan, who, as we had said a year ago, did not finish top 50 in the FedEx Cup point standings. So he should have gone into the fall to try and get his status to play in the AT&T and the Genesis. He ended up not. So he fell to like 100th in the FedEx fall standings. So he didn't play at all.
You're talking about Jordan?
Yeah. Well,
he had surgery.
Jordan and Ricky in this case. But yes, Jordan got hurt. But what I'm saying is that he ended up getting a sponsor exemption to play in the AT&T and the Genesis this year, right? He was upset that he didn't get an exemption to play at the Arnold Palmer. And whether or not you agree with it, there's a reason why it's a signature event. The AT&T and the Genesis were two events that, while yes, signature events didn't kind of fall under the umbrella, there's a reason why you could still earn status based on your FedEx fall standings in order to get there. This was a particularly higher leverage event. So they're reasonably upset. Ryan French tweeted this out, and I think it made a lot of sense. Why wouldn't, if you instead of bitching and moaning about not getting your exemption, go play the Puerto Rico as Jordan Spieth and Ricky Fowler? Yeah, sure, it might be beneath you, if you can call it that, but it would have been a huge event. People would have loved to have had them there. Again, it's an opposite field event. You're going to get rid of a Monday qualifier for an event that guys try and get their licks on this tour. Maybe it's because the field is 150 guys. The event this week has Johnson Wagner as the 9th alternate in the field. I don't think he's held a golf club in 3 years outside of on Golf Channel. Like that's the reality we're dealing with. Why are we getting rid of a Monday queue when guys can actually get into this field who need it more than a bunch of older players who are past their prime and don't necessarily even need those starts? I think like Jason Duffner got an exemption. And there's 14 guys who are getting sponsor exemptions into this event. Most of them don't even really play very frequently. So that's also just taking away spots from younger players who deserve it more. This whole thing rubbed me the wrong way for a lot of reasons, because this is where we should be having the Monday queues placed, and we should be having more alternate field events, like we say. But something about it it's wrong to be taking away these opportunities, and I don't want to speak more on it. More goes to this whole thing with Jordan and Ricky and how they should be guys who you don't get spots at the API, go play the Puerto Rico. They'd be excited to have you.
Well, here's the thing. This is something that runs rampant in sports, and I know you'll agree with me. Players, once they get older, more like established players with a lot of name, right? A lot of name recognition. They've had great careers, and both Ricky and Jordan have had phenomenal careers.
Yeah.
And this is across every single sport. There's almost like a sense of entitlement that they're entitled to getting starts, just like how players in, basketball, baseball, football, they're like, no, I'm entitled to play because, I've been a vet for 10 years. Well, guess what? No, you're not. You know why? Because you're not as effective anymore. And I feel like golf is one of those sports that really likes to hold on to the past because it's all about tradition. And that was like a big issue that people had with LIV. It wasn't traditional, right? And so you're 100% right. And so was Ryan, saying that they should go to the Puerto Rico Open. It would be great for the event as a whole. It would be an opportunity for them to sharpen up their game and get, FedEx Cup points, world ranking points, and money to try to catapult themselves into the rest of the year. I mean, people can say what they want about, Rory McIlroy winning the Zurich Classic, a team event. That event springboarded him into having what was a very subpar year by his standards to a very good one, actually. Because then he won that with Shane Lowry, and then he ended up winning, I believe, 2 weeks later at Quail Hollow, and he played very well the rest of the year. He almost won the U.S. Open. I think professional athletes as a whole, they need to learn to swallow their pride and say, hey, guess what? Like, I haven't played well and I need opportunities to play. Yeah. And so this is an opportunity. It's all about having an opportunity. I was talking about this with someone recently. I don't remember who it was, but like I always say, like, when I'm playing well, it's an opportunity for me to see how low I can go. If I'm not playing well, it's an opportunity for me to see how deep I can dig.
Exactly.
And so I think, I wouldn't maybe use the term deserving, like, oh, like these guys who like haven't had tour starts, they deserve it more than a past champion like Jason Duffner. A past major champion like Jason Duffner. I don't know if deserving is the right word, but by just getting rid of Monday qualifiers, you're taking away opportunities for guys to play well. And so opportunities for guys just to play well, showcase their skills, and maybe turn a week into a month, which can turn a month. You can turn a month into a year. And so I think that there's, I am happy that the tour didn't give them exemptions into Bay Hill, because I think that that's something that 5 years ago the tour would have done. I personally believe that. Whereas now they're not. And I think the tour is probably trying to just, because it's been so player dominated and the players have wanted to have such a voice. And it's funny, since the players have had such a loud voice, the product has just gone straight downhill, in my opinion. I think it has, as far as from a viewership standpoint. Golf has become so political. It's like it's golf. It shouldn't be that deep. And unfortunately, it's gotten there. So I'm happy that the tour didn't give them exemptions, because quite frankly, they don't deserve it. And I know I'm going to piss a lot of Ricky and Jordan Spieth fans off, but it's just the truth. I have nothing against those guys. They've done a lot. They've been very successful, but they don't deserve the exemption.
The only thing I will say to that, and I agree with you that they don't deserve the exemption, but at the same time, there are guys in this field this week that have earned exemptions, which for whatever reason, I don't understand why they are in a field like this. Like, you dig down to the very bottom of the odds boards, like Rafael Campos is in the field this week. What did he do in order to get to Bay Hill? Like, from there, though, like Tom Hoagie, Justin Lowe, or Matthew Pavon, those guys do deserve their spots. But like Rafael Campos, what does he have that Jordan Spieth wouldn't? And I don't think like Jordan inappropriately said, oh, like, I should have played better while hurt. Like, don't try and play it off as if you're the victim here. Like, at the end of the day, I get it, you were hurt, but you also haven't been very good for the last 2 years. You've been figuring yourself out. You've been trying to readjust. Same thing with Ricky Fowler. He has 1 win in 3 years, and sure, it's gotten him. He's had his moments, but neither one of them deserve a consistent spot in this field if they aren't going to be a top 75 player in the world, like what the signature event should be. That's just how it is. So,
just so you know, Rafael Campos won last year. That's why he got in.
oh, did he? Oh, wait.
Yeah, he won. He won.
I didn't realize. Yeah. Okay. Wait, I'm thinking of Villegas, who won a couple years ago, but at Bermuda. Okay, so yeah, that makes sense then, right? But as we said, Jordan and Ricky haven't won in a bit. It takes them. They don't just deserve it because they shouldn't be getting a handout. Birthday shout outs this week. Pretty loaded birthday set, but today we want to give a shout out to Patton Kazire, who was born on this day in 1986. He turns, I believe, 33 today, or a little bit older than that. The former Auburn Tiger, born in Alabama, born and bred in Bama, turned pro in 2008, earned a spot on the Web.com tour in 2014. He was 2015 regular season money leader on the Web.com tour, as well as the Player of the Year. That year, he has 3 PGA Tour wins to date under his belt, including his latest win that came at the Pro Core Championship this past year in Napa during the Fall Series. So other birthday shout-outs this week. Denny McCarthy turns 31 tomorrow, as well as Peter Jacobson, the legend, turns 71 tomorrow. Tom Lehman turns 66 on Friday. And one of my favorite commentators on Golf Channel, Andy North, he turns a ripe 75 on Sunday. So happy birthday to all of our guys.
It's Tom Lehman, not Lehman. I just figured.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Sorry, I just want to educate you. You know, I'm looking out for you.
I see names like Lehman, and I think Lehman Brothers, and that Lehman. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. That's okay.
It's okay. Look, there's always those few names that you always get wrong.
Hey, look, I still love you. You know, you still have a special spot in my heart. You know.
You know, I laugh because there's one thing I will ever take from journalism school. It was my old mentor. He used to say, you don't belong and you don't deserve to cover sports if you can't fucking say the guy's name right. And then I come on here and I
you mispronounce a lot of names.
I do. Martin Kamer. But come on, dude.
Gosh, that's
every time I do it
for a long time.
Every time. There are some things that like, all right, I butcher it. It's whatever. Fine. There are certain names that I need to get right. By the way, our shout outs of the week are brought to you by Acorn Hills, who is changing clothing through conservation, dedicated to supporting environmental efforts by offering biodegradable clothing tags, packaging, recycled materials. And for every dollar spent, the National Forest Foundation will plant a seedling to promote afforestation across our great land. Be sure to jump on to acornhillsco.com and use code GITH15. That's Get in the Hole 15 for 15% off your next order at acornhillsco.com. Get in with their new selections from quarter zips to polos, jackets, t-shirts, from on and off the course, and be sure to look your best from the ground up. A lot of news from PGA National this past week. Of course, the Highsmith win. Luke Clanton gets his tour card. Some good performances from a relatively loaded field this week. The leaderboard, after day one, I was scrolling through and saw some big names, saw some interesting names. The one thing that stood out to me the most was the average scoring in round one. Of course, Jake Knapp shot 59, which was insane. A wild 12 under, including 2 of 3 birdies out at the Bear Trap. But going into round 2, 12 under par, 8 under par, 9 under par, I was shocked to find the PGA National played the way it did. And the media took notice, and the golf fan took a lot of notice. All over Twitter, people were criticizing PGA National playing too easy. It wasn't traditionally what it usually is. I know you have a bone to pick with the guys over at the Fried Egg who talked about how the course was quote unquote neutered. What do you make of the oddly easy conditions from PGA National this past week?
Well, the good thing is I have the luxury of living 15 minutes down the road from PGA National. And so I can confidently say the reason why the course played easy, we had very little wind and it was 75 to 80 degrees. It was as perfect for scoring as you can get. On top of that, it's also been a very dry winter. And so you can have the best sprinkler system in the world at your golf course. if you're not having consistent rainfall from Mother Nature, I hate to break it to you, the rough is not going to be very penalizing. Okay. I saw pictures of it. I saw videos because I know people that went to the event. The course was dry as a bone. Okay. When it's that dry, you're not going to grow rough. So by default, you've no wind, no rough, and you overseeded, which really, I hope people understand this. Overseeding does not make a big difference as far as the playability of a golf course. And I hope everyone understands the reason why we overseed. You know what? I have a bunch of stuff on Google, and I'm just going to read it word for word, thanks to AI. Okay. So this is what we're going to do. So give me a minute, please. And because I would like, please. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. I just simply typed in, what is the purpose of overseeding? Because look, I don't know grass like Steve does. Okay. Not my forte. So I just Googled it. What is the purpose of overseeding Bermuda grass in South Florida for golf? According to AI and Google, maybe it's the same thing. I don't know. Overseeding Bermuda grass in South Florida for golf improves the appearance, playability, and health of the course. Overseeding is also known as top dressing. The appearance. Overseeding helps golf courses maintain a green appearance during the winter. Overseeding can provide colorful aesthetics. Steve, why would that be important to a place like PGA National? I know why. Because it's a resort and it's also a private club. So you have to keep the resort guests happy and you have to keep the members happy as well. Playability. Overseeding can help maintain consistent playing surfaces. Overseeding can help prevent the base Bermuda from wearing out when it's in a slow growth phase. That slow growth phase is something that we call dormant, which is what happens to Bermuda grass during the winter. When a grass goes dormant, it can't grow. Okay, so this allows for the fairways and the rough to grow and the roots to stay healthy. Okay, which when it's a resort course, you get a lot of play and you need to keep the course nice throughout the year. Health overseeding can help promote new growth. Overseeding can help suppress weeds. Overseeding can help regulate temperature, and overseeding can help improve soil stability. Water absorption. Overseeding can help golf courses absorb more water during the winter. Why would that be important? Probably because it's been a very dry winter. So we have not as much water as we usually have. So the ryegrass will help hold the water much more effectively than a dormant Bermuda grass. Turf coverage. Overseeding can help provide an acceptable turf coverage while the Bermuda grass is dormant. Divot recovery. Overseeding can help with divot recovery when temperatures are conducive for ryegrass growth, which is what you see in North and South Florida, even down here in Palm Beach. Finally, overseeding, this is according to DTE Golf, quote, overseeding involves planting cool season grasses such as ryegrass over existing warm season grasses like Bermuda or zoysia. This strategic addition not only provides a vibrant green hue during the winter, but also ensures that the golf course maintains its visual allure throughout the year, end quote. Now, Steve, something that people don't really understand is that the main way for a superintendent to keep their job is to keep the course green.
Yeah.
People want to see green, okay? That is why even when you play a link-style course, most superintendents are very hesitant to brown it out. Even that's how link-style courses are meant to be played, right? Because at the end of the day, members, they just want to see a pretty green course. The owner wants to see a pretty green course. So that's the easiest way for someone to keep their job. At the end of the day, the reason why they overseeded, it's to keep the course looking nice. It's easier on the course for playability because they get so many rounds every single day throughout the year because it's a famous resort. And to be completely honest, I think that they're going to favor their members and the resort guests and not the tour for 6 days.
Yeah.
Or 7 days. That's just pretty much how it works. And so I don't mean to, I probably sound like such a jerk for how I'm saying this, but it really it really grinded my gears. It really did when I read this tweet from the Friday. And they won't agree with me. That's fine. I don't really care. At the end of the day, you can talk about, TV ratings all you want. The TV ratings are in the gutter anyway. So who really cares? Yeah. And at the end of the day, mind you, I can assure you, most professional golfers, they enjoy easier golf courses. They'd much rather play a course they have to shoot 15, 18 under par than a course they have to grind for 4 days and shoot 4 under or even par like at a US Open, because that is exhausting.
Yeah.
So I don't really understand what the issue is. I mean, like, this is the same organization that was poo-pooing the Mexico Open winner last week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't understand it. That's all I have to say.
So the agronomy hat is back on. The only thing that I will say to counteract your point on the grass, right? Overseeding does allow the ball to sit up a little more, which makes the playing conditions a little bit easier. However, like you had noted, the rough wasn't thick. It's usually one of the thickest on tour week in and week out. The contouring of greens are usually way more challenging. It's also way more windy and rainy at this portion of the year than it usually is. They're always overseeding the grass in the winter. It's whether you're down south, it's whether you're out west. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the Bermuda grass in Florida can only withstand so much temperature. It isn't like you're playing up here where it's all bent grass greens in New York and they get overseed however much they want. They overseed Augusta National when they played back in 2020 for COVID. When they played in November, they overseeded it for 3 straight months. That was the easiest conditioned Augusta National has ever been, and it was still a challenging golf course. Doesn't necessarily mean very much. The ball just sits up a little bit easier than everywhere else. So it's fine, whatever. But again, the rough wasn't very thick. It's usually incredibly thick. The greens weren't as challenging. It's usually top 5 most challenging on tour. The bear trap was still as hard as it usually is, without the rain, without the wind and the rain and everything else. Also, the last time they fully overseeded the entire golf course was 2014. That was when Russell Henley and Rory McIlroy duked it out in a 4-way playoff. They finished at 8 under that week. Every single year since, scores have gotten better and better at the golf course, with the exception of the year after, which Patrick Harrington won. Over the last 4 years, 12 unders won the event, 10 under, 14. Austin Eckroat won last year at 17 under par. The conditions were the exact same as last year. Only exception, the rough was thick. That's it.
Well,
The golf course was not challenging, sure. It also is getting easier for players on technology alone to overcome the challenges of these golf courses. And that's everywhere. The score at the Masters is getting lower every single year. The score at the Open, for the most part, is getting lower every single year. The only score in golf where the score has been consistently the same the last 5 years on tour has been the Players, the US Open, and again, that's very different sites. And I believe, if I'm not wrong, like very early in the year, Pebble, and it's only because the conditions suck. Because it's wet and it's cold, and you're right on the water at the very beginning of February. That's it. Don't complain that the course was playing too easy, because we saw a really competitive leaderboard the entirety of the way through. Jake Knapp was a 36-hole leader. He had a 6 on one hole and fell all the way to 6th. Like, guys won this event. Joe Highsmith came back from 4 strokes down, shot back-to-back 64s after making the cut on the number. That's a great story. Russell Henley was top 5 the entirety of the week. He lost 3 strokes putting in the final day. He lost 2.5 strokes putting on the back 9 alone to lose. That's the stories that you want to see. I don't care how the course conditions look. I love a hard golf course. I love seeing scores in the single digits under par. But at the end of the day, you can't complain about that when you've also complained in the past about weak fields taking over, like the Farmers, when Matthew Pavon won at 12 under par at the Farmers. What are you going to complain about? The field or the course? Can't it's
like how dare they have a healthy golf course for the best players in the world to play? It's absolutely ludicrous. It's asinine. And oh geez, you should clip that. Those are 2 SAT words right there, Ethan.
It's amazing. It's amazing because everyone just wants to find a thing to complain about.
Well, and you want to, all right, Steve, want to know something that's really going to blow your mind? I mean, it's not going to blow your mind because you're a smart guy. Guess what? We have 2 more courses we have several more events in Florida. Innisbrook, guess what? They overseed. Still one of the hardest golf courses on the tour in Florida. It's incredibly difficult. And guess what? This week at the Arnold Palmer, guess what? they overseed that one too.
Again,
So
it's the fucking winter. Like, it's cold outside.
That is a brutally bad argument to be made that it's because the ball is sitting up more. Guess what? Want to know something? When the ball actually sits up more, it's actually annoying because you actually end up hitting the ball higher on the face. When you hit the ball higher on the face, it knocks the spin off and the ball tends to shoot more. It doesn't grab the club as much. So the ball tends to go further. So that's one of the reasons why, yes, look, I like for the ball to be sitting up just fine. But just so we're clear, this is not making a big difference at all. The issue has been the winter, it's been dry, we don't have enough rain, and no wind the entire last week with perfect temperatures. So that's what ended up leading to this very low scoring event.
Also, not for nothing, and I understand it's 75, 80 degrees. It's very similar if you don't live in Florida or you just live somewhere in the South. The mornings are still cold in the winter. The evenings are still cold. It's still windy. Bermuda grass can only withstand roughly 50-degree temperatures before it starts browning out. So, of course, if you were a golf superintendent, you would take extra precaution that even if the low is 60 degrees, you could technically have 10 degrees there buffer. You're still going to overseed because you want it to look good. And who wants to play on a brown golf course when you're on live TV? Nobody.
No one does.
No one does.
Absolutely no one does. And at the end of the day, these supers have to keep their jobs. They have to. And the best way for them to do it, the easiest way, is to keep a green and to make sure those all the divots and the roots are healthy, because nothing's going to grow if it's dormant. It's dormant. It's not going to grow. So
I saw a tweet. There was a agrologist who was like handling the golf course, and instead of just laying down like seeding when a big divot is made and like planting the divot back in, they use the hole puncher and they replace it with like fresh grass. And someone tweets out and they're like, "Oh, that's bad for the health of the grass." What the fuck do you care? Like, the way they want to go about fixing their golf course.
It's like, what do you even know? You're like it's like a person like that. It's just like some jerk off that's just sitting in their mom's basement, just tweeting away.
Stop being a keyboard warrior and trying to complain about something. We have guys now on Long Island who are getting pissed off that Bethpage Black is going to open up on I think like April 7th, but it's going to close in July. They're like, "Oh, why is it going to close in July?" They have a fucking tournament happening there 2 months afterwards. They got to fucking prep the course. You want to complain about everything. Don't complain about Black being closed. Complain the Ryder Cup is $800. Like, give me a break. I fucking hate how everyone just wants to bitch and moan about everything.
It's because the majority of the population in this country is just very miserable and just a bunch of curmudgeon dorks. Like, whatever.
Kay sent me a photo. She's like, because she's a health nerd. She's like, "Oh, like in Sweden and Denmark, people will like park their strollers outside and like let their like children, like babies, like sleep in the stroller." And I'm like, you do that in America, like you're getting a CPS case on you. Why is everywhere else in the world so great, and yet we're the ones like who everyone's complaining about something at some given juncture? No one can just be like happy about getting to watch quality golf at any given moment. Speaking of people being pissed off about absolute bullshit. So the TGL and their viewership has been ducking every single week since its debut. From as high as 1 million viewers in week 2, all the way down to 289,000 views for last week's showing on Monday and Tuesday combined. The TGL has swiftly seen what was really good numbers very quickly die down. Actually, the final of 2 events of the regular season just concluded today, with the New York Golf Club winning 10-6 over Boston, which will locks New York into a playoff spot, the final spot. So the playoffs are basically set in the TGL. The Bay is the 1 seed. They went undefeated this year. LA went 3-0-1 with an overtime loss. Atlanta's 3-1 with their final matchup, I believe tomorrow against Jupiter. And New York finishes 2-1 with an overtime loss against Atlanta. That's not even the point of what we're talking about here. We're talking about the viewership issue. What could be the cause here, and why is the TGL ducking, and why are people not complaining about the TGL when they're instead complaining about the PGA Tour? We went on months ago talking about how this was great and the product was here to stay. Do you think it's a matter of a lack of interest, or is there a deeper schematic reason for why viewership is ducked each of the last 4 weeks?
Well, no one's complaining about the TGL because no one's watching the TGL.
True.
So,
but no one's watching the PGA Tour either. So there's
no, I'm just saying, you know, me being the CEO of Common Sense, I'm just throwing it out there. There's nothing for them to complain about because they're not watching it. Okay. So
there you go. Thank you.
Look, I made this comparison to KB. You weren't on the show that week. Kyle covered for you, and I had said I came around on the TGL. Okay, and I still do believe it can be successful. I do not believe the issue is that there's been a lack of competitiveness. 7 of the 12 matches, I just want to make sure I look at this. 7 of the 12 matches have been decided by 3 points or less. Okay, that's still very much competitive. Okay. I made this comparison to Kyle, and I said the Miami Marlins, when they opened up their new ballpark, prior to even having that ballpark, they were never known for having high attendances. Okay, they were always basically bottom 5 in Major League Baseball when they played at Dolphin Stadium. They opened the new ballpark, and despite the location being awful because it eliminates Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach, they were actually, I believe, middle of the pack or even in the top half of the MLB in attendance because people were interested. Brand new ballpark. They had fish tanks right behind home plate. They had the beautiful home run sculpture. It's a gorgeous stadium. But the next year, and by the way, they were roughly 15th in attendance, and they were an awful baseball team.
Yeah.
Okay. After that, they were still terrible, and then no one decided to go because they had seen the new attraction, right? Initially, this was the new attraction. TGL was this new thing, which was spearheaded by Tiger and Rory, and everyone was interested. How's it going to look? What's it going to be like? What exactly are the rules? How's it going to work? You're hitting, and they're hitting off of an actual grass surface, real bunkers, into a screen. And yes, they've had a little bit of technical difficulties with the simulator picking up the divot, not the ball, whatever. They've had some funny gaffes. Them telling Tiger it's 199 and him hearing it's 99 instead. So it's a perfect shot, but wrong distance. It's not even the fact. I don't think golf being what it is, which is a niche sport, I do think that it will attract people who aren't necessarily interested in watching tour golf because it's quicker, it's more fun, guys can show their personalities. But at the end of the day, it's still golf, and it's not that exciting to watch. Okay? And I don't really know. Look, I haven't put too much thought into the TGL, to be completely honest, because my world doesn't really revolve around it.
Yeah.
Like when I watch golf, I'm going to watch tour golf. I'm not going to watch simulator golf. That's just me personally. And I don't watch a lot of tour golf to begin with. So you can't change the day because you can't change the day to Wednesday because these tournaments start on Thursday. And guys, if they want to play that week, they got to get out there to whatever course they're playing. And so, I think maybe like something they could do is when the off season rolls around after the RSM, that like week in November, maybe then you could do the TGL because then you have like the kind of those like exhibition tournaments where it's like it used to be called the Franklin Templeton Shootout. It's called something else now. Down in Naples.
The Grant Thornton.
Yeah, that thing. Yeah, like you have those events, the PNC, like events that like no one really watches.
Yeah.
Maybe if you could make it like an off-season thing, I think that could be interesting. But it's with golf, it's not football. You're not going to have a lot of viewership, especially when people are already watching your event Thursday through Sunday.
Yeah.
Like most people just quite honestly don't have the time to sit down and watch 6 days of tournament style golf. Most people have wives or husbands. They have kids. They have jobs. They have real adult things to do, And so I don't really know how successful it can truly be. I still think it can be successful. And I think that if it does become successful, it could be a beautiful thing because if they were able to expand and have different facilities in different cities, that would be fantastic because then your people are getting to work. You can hire staff for all these different facilities. And so, which benefits the residents of those cities, the local economy, all that's a plus. But for this thing to be successful, it has to be successful in this current iteration. And it'll be interesting to see. They might have to make some adjustments. Tiger forever will be carrying the tour as long as he can kind of play.
Yeah.
But he plays 6 times a year, maybe. Okay. Ever since then, the numbers have dipped. Okay. And if he's not even competing in the playoffs for his own league, that's a problem for the league, because golf runs through Tiger Woods at the end of the day.
I think the issue is twofold, and I mean it's you could jot it up to a lack of marketing. I mean, I hear ads maybe like once or twice on my drive-in on WFAN in the mornings, and then the only reason why is because of I don't hear it at all in the afternoons. I only ever hear it in the mornings. I think Barstool did a recent ad read for it. Like you said, like they have the ability to, they have a lot of money. They have the ability to advertise through ESPN. I don't watch cable television, so I admittedly do not know how often they advertise through ESPN's channel. Of course, if the TGL wants to advertise on here, please contact us. I'd be happy to get a sponsorship deal here with TGL and be able to yell it to the heavens to watch the TGL every week. But the marketing to me doesn't seem totally there. I think this latest iteration, you're right. Like Tiger moves the needle, Rory moves the needle. Neither of their teams are going to be in the playoffs. So is it really that interesting without them? I don't think there's a competitive issue. I do think the teams though are a little bit uneven to a degree. Like you look at like the Bay where it's Ludwig Oberg, Wyndham Clark. They have somebody else on the team. I'm drawing a blank on who it is. I'll pull the rosters here. You would think that I would know this stuff. Yeah, like our playoff rosters are Morikawa, Thigala, Rose, and Fleetwood. It's a great team. Oberg, Clark, Minwoo Lee, and Shane Lowry, another great team. And then Atlanta is Horschel, Glover, Thomas, and Cantley, another great team. Like, not that Rory, Hideki, Keegan, and Adam Scott isn't a bad team, but when you match up to the youth of some of these other teams, or you take Tiger Woods and Kevin Kisner, when the other team's worst 2 players, let's take LA for example, are Thigala and Justin Rose, like that's a very inadequate like matchup, right? So I feel like the teams could be a little bit more even. They're implementing now 1-day contracts. Finau played for LA. Atlanta is going to get Nick Dunlap next week, so like that can also work out well. But I think it comes down to marketing. I think it comes down to just the accessibility and the timing that it happens. I feel like if you're playing matches without, first of all, no advertising alone, right? What makes television shows on CBS or NBC or back in the day, right? We used to watch like, I remember when we were growing up, my mom every single day knew this day, this time. There was like Monday at 8:00. That was American Idol every single Monday. Or you knew the Big Bang Theory was every Tuesday at 8:00 on CBS. What makes those shows great? You know when it is, and you know and you look forward to it. It's why Survivor was always so big. It's why Big Brother was always so big. And these reality shows, you knew when it was happening. The Kardashians even had their own time slot every single week. You're playing Mondays or Tuesdays, anytime from 5 to 9 p.m. And 9 p.m. is your prime time slot. The whole point of the TGL was to implement it after the national championship run for college football. So Monday's available. You can run every single Monday because they're not showing Monday Night Football in the NFL in February. Like they should be able to have Monday, 8:00, MNF's over, college football playoff is over. this is going to be your new Monday primetime slot in sports because no one else is playing on Monday. The NHL plays Wednesday. The NBA plays Tuesday. That's your day to do it. And plus, also, you have Monday to do it. Guys can then leave on Tuesday or can leave on Tuesday to get to their tournament. Now, accessibility will get great once they have possibly a facility in LA, or if they were to set up facilities strategically, right? Florida, LA, somewhere kind of like North Carolina-ish, where you're able to, when you have those pockets of tournaments in certain areas, that, all right, hey, there's a course right here. I'm not going to go from playing the Farmers, fly all the way to Florida, and then fly back to California to play the Genesis in 2 weeks. No, like you can at least like maneuver that way. Scottsdale is another example, right? Like they don't have that in-your-face advertising that you need to have. Even like LIVGolf doesn't have it, and you wonder why the ratings are so low there. So those things all combined, I think, are really the issue that TGL is facing. And of course, like you said, like the guys who move the needle aren't moving the needle, but they do have a cast of 80% of other guys who are like, we have the best young athlete, probably sit like in the field every week, Ludwig Oberg. They might add Scotty Scheffler, the best golfer in the world right now. Like we have multiple time major winners, the guys who were the young up-and-comers, Colin Morikawa, Zahid Theegala, in these fields should be able to get some eyeballs. I'm kind of surprised that they aren't, but to no avail. They'll hopefully take year one, say, hey, what worked, what didn't, and hopefully year two is better. But playoffs are coming around. We'll see what the ratings are with that, and hopefully we can get off on a better foot after the playoffs. We'll see.
Playoffs? Talk about playoffs?
We just got to win a damn game.
I'm trying to win a damn game.
We got to talk about how the New York Golf Club, it's Xander Schauffele, who also hasn't even been playing because he's been dealing with a rib injury. But then like Fitz and Ricky Fowler haven't done anything for this team either yet. Like it's New York. Just load the team up, load the box. And Cameron Young, don't get me started on Cameron Young, dude. The amount of people who were betting Cameron Young at like 100-1 last week. I'm so happy that I said not top 10. I should have literally had to miss the cut. It was so in the cards, so in your face. It was so obvious. All right. We're going to take a break. On the other side, the interview with Joie Chitwood coming right up. Had a great conversation with Joey. Talked all about his upbringing, all the way from being the grandson of a big-time stuntman and former IndyCar driver to working with the Arnold Palmer Group, and now finally getting his cracks as the executive director of the Truist Championship, as well as next year's President's Cup at Medina. He was also formerly the executive director of the Coniston Classic, which in its first term last year, he was able to bring it on and make it even better than what it has been as the Honda. So Joie Chitwood coming up, and then, of course, following that, our beer money picks. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back, folks.
Get in the Hole is brought to you by PHI Apparel Company, our incredible merch partners. PHI Apparel Co. provides unique designs and high-quality clothing, from t-shirts to hoodies, for every golfer around. With their original designs for all, there's no doubt you'll stand out on the course, the driving range, or at the 19th hole. Go to phiapparel.co and use code UNDERGROUND at checkout for 10% off any order. That's code UNDERGROUND at phiapparel.co and grab exclusive Get in the Hole podcast merch and support your favorite golfers.
Welcome back to Get in the Hole. Thanks for hanging around. It's been a terrific show so far, but there's a ton more to chat about. Be sure to stick around till the end of the show where we will give you our preview of Bay Hill, give our picks for the Arnold Palmer Invitational, part of our daily beer money picks. But before we get into that, we have a special guest announcement. We've been teasing this for a couple of weeks, and we're so excited to see it come to life as the now Truist Championship, formerly the Wells Fargo, makes its debut on tour. It brings with it a brand new course to boot. That's right. The Truist Championship for 2025 only, coming to the Philadelphia Cricket Club, our neck of the woods, and we're so excited to be able to have an event hosted right in our neck of the woods, and to be able to give us all of the insight into the event. We bring on Executive Director of the 2025 Truist Championship, Joie Chitwood. Joey, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I love it. You mentioned Bay Hill. I spent 2.5 years as the executive director of the Arnold Palmer Invitational down there, so be interested to know what your pick might be. That's definitely a challenging venue. Let's just say that nobody runs away from it down there, but they put on a good show down in Orlando.
I could very well make the easy pick of Scotty Scheffler, but I feel like I'm going to have to do a lot of research into determining where I end up going with it. There's been a lot of really great performances so far early on this year, so it'll be exciting to see how, especially this week, pans out with the Cognizant. You also were the interim executive director there as well, so kind of everything's sort of falling into place in a good 2-week span for you.
I guess the tour just likes to parachute me in and, I figure it out. But no, I'm excited. Look, golf, I think, is a phenomenal sport. I love the way the competition is set up. I love the unique venues that they go to. And really, I think when you think about the discipline, the process, professional golfers, what it takes to win, I love that it's really them against the course. I mean, it really shows a true test of the talent. And I spent a lot of years in racing. I feel like racing and golf are very similar in terms of that individual against the field, if you will, and what it takes to be successful. So whether it was Arnold Palmer Invitational, helping out with the Cognizant Classic last year, but I have to tell you, though, I've really enjoyed my short time helping out with the Truist Championship. I think ultimately we've got a couple months to go. So 8 months ago, I think we quote signed the deal, made the announcement, and we have 10 months in total to put on a signature event. But when I think about signature event, the top 70 on the PGA Tour, huge purse, we're going to have some phenomenal golfers here. And then I say that the Philadelphia Cricket Club measures up just as a signature event would. The character of the place, the history, the classic Tillinghast design, it's truly, I think, a perfect match for this one-off opportunity in Philadelphia. And I have to tell you, the energy that we've seen from the marketplace, whether it's the members or just the sports crazy fans here in town, it's been well received. And I will tell you, I think golf in Philadelphia, there's a heck of a good future in store, hopefully for Philadelphia, because right now we're seeing some great results early on.
Yeah, ton of things to talk about, whether it be just the event itself, what the players are thinking. Of course, this golf course, the Cricket Club, hasn't hosted a major since 1910, and even then, this course didn't even really exist. The Wissahickon course wasn't involved until the 1920s, and I personally have a big affinity for Tillinghast courses. I mean, I'm from Long Island, so literally 15 minutes away is Bethpage Black. I play that a ton. Wingfoot is right around the corner, and just you hear Tillinghast, you immediately think, oh, major tournament golf. It's absolute brute golf courses. And I think everyone's really excited to be able to experience the Cricket Club, not only for the local Philadelphia economy, but also just the general sports fan. It's always nice to see a new face pop up on tour. I mean, we were talking about it. We had the directors for the Black Desert Championship in the fall series, and brand new golf course out in the middle of Utah, and they were so ecstatic. The fans were all over it. It's in one of the most beautiful parts of the country, right in the mountains by Zion. And the feedback from everybody who was involved in a much smaller market too was immense. So I can only imagine what a signature event to Philadelphia is going to bring to the table.
Well, think about there's only a little over 40 what we'll call PGA Tour events on the calendar, and the competition to get a tour card. And then you have these 40 some odd events and how you have to perform to keep your card the next year. And you go to some very classic courses, traditional courses, after Cognizant Arnold Palmer, they're going to go to the Players Championship at Sawgrass. And what a phenomenal track that is. I mean, to play some of these great courses all across the country. I mean, West Coast, how about some of those awesome venues, whether it's Pebble Beach or whether it was Palm Springs. I mean, it's definitely a true test, and it takes it across from the West Coast to the East Coast and every place in the middle. But what I really like about this is sometimes these the golfers actually get a really good vibe for the courses that they play on, and they play them year over year. So they really understand how the greens are, the tricks to it, how they break, all those elements. But when you come to the Philadelphia Cricket Club, it's kind of a blank slate for everyone. everybody's really equal. So they don't really know some of the nuances, or what's the right position to hit off the tee, and how far is it going to bounce to the left or to the right? How does that green break? And of course, one of those little classic 120-yard par threes, right? That's a great Tillinghast design, phenomenal green, very complex, great bunkers. Who knows what they're going to hit, how much spin to put on it? Will it spin off the front of the green? Will it check up and go over? I just think this is going to be a great challenge because they won't have much time to really learn the nuance. And it's not like they're coming here for the second or third or fourth year.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that's a bit of an equalizer for everyone. I do get the same question a lot. Boy, these guys are tour professionals. Are they going to come in and put a crazy number on the board? They could. I mean, there are some golfers that get hot. If they can get into that 70% driving accuracy, boy, it's tough for a golf course to defend itself from there. But I do think, having not played Philadelphia Cricket Club, or only a practice round or two that they'll get in before the event, I think it'll provide a little bit more of a test and a challenge. But that's the beauty of why we buy a ticket. That's why we tune in on TV, because this course is going to give a great defense. Who's going to rise to the challenge? And for us, I think it's phenomenal. Some of these tournaments this year, I mean, whether it's playoffs or phenomenal, one shot on the last hole to win, that's the storytelling, the drama that we all want to see in sports. I think when I think about what my job is, I've got to set a stage and let these athletes put on a phenomenal show. I am blessed that the stage is the Philadelphia Cricket Club. So other than making sure the hospitality venues are situated just right, the look and the feel of the Truist Championship makes sense, this course is a championship course. I mean, hands down. And so then to marry that with the PGA Tour's best, the top 70, I mean, we have got one in the making. And I really like to, coming out of the spring with this great event in May, I think it's going to get everybody excited for the rest of the summer swing. And so who knows what's going to happen, but I would almost bet that we're going to see some shots and some golf that we've not seen before, and everyone's going to walk away very, very impressed.
You bring up a great point. I talk about it a lot whenever we chat betting, and I had a mentor back in college who he always used the term horses for courses. It's the guys who they always go here, they always play well. Actually, the prime example being in the past, of course, the event will go back to Quail Hollow next year, but Rory McIlroy's won at Quail Hollow 4 times. It's like it's he shows up, he knows the course, he could play it perfectly, doesn't even have to think about it a lick. He just knows what he's doing. And so it's amazing to be able to see this sort of scenario. It almost kind of gives a major feel. I was looking back at my notes, and I'm like, I keep beating it through my head. I'm like, this isn't a major, but the signature event. Like it's still the level of it, but the way it almost feels like it's like accumulating is that feeling of a major kind of feel. You go to the US Open, you go to the PGA Championship, you go to the Open, and all these new courses and historic courses too. And they have this vibe of, a winning score might be 6 under par. And honestly, for the hardcore golf fan, we love that. Sometimes you don't want to see a 30 under score on the board. You want to see guys have to fight the cut line at +7. Like the idea to be able to go to these places and do that is absolutely exceptional. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the Cricket Club is able to do. Really quickly, I want to get into a couple of things before we talk the event and the course itself. I want to just get to know you, and because, of course, for the viewers, while we already know the players in the field, we know some things about the courses week in and week out, we don't know the names and the people behind the scenes doing all of this work. I was fascinated in doing all of my research for the show that you're the grandson of a former stuntman. You have obviously been in racing for a long time. Like the start of your life, traveling around with your family, your exposure to racing, and now obviously you're into golf. Did you pick up golf at a young age? Was it more of a later in life thing? How did your life story bring you to this event?
Well, do we have a couple hours? This could take a while. I've got some pretty good stories. I'm blessed that I was born into a family business. And my grandfather was a race car driver back in the 1940s, raced at the Indy 500, was the first man to ever wear a seatbelt in the Indy 500. Now, back in 1946, they averaged 120 miles per hour around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and they thought it was safer to get thrown from the car in an accident than stay in it. Now, the reason why is there was no fuel cell technology back then. Mm-hmm. So in a crash, it was a fireball. And usually there was a fatality involved with that. And so here my grandfather is, a race car driver, first one to wear a seatbelt, But what was interesting, in World War II occurred, and racing was outlawed in this country. They needed all of the, whether it's rubber, oil, gas, for the war effort. So here he is, an out-of-work race car driver. So he buys the remnants of a stunt show from a widow of the gentleman who owned it. A gentleman named Lucky Teeter out of Noblesville, Indiana, had died performing a stunt. My grandfather bought the remnants from the widow, and July 4th, 1943, in Williams Grove, Pennsylvania, the very first Joie Chitwood thrill show was staged, and we ran that business for 55 years. My grandfather was based out of Reading, Pennsylvania. So that's where the home office was. I have a business card from the 1950s, and it shows my grandfather and the title, and it shows his office as the Reading Hotel. And the number on the business card was 5 dash and then 4 other numbers. So it wasn't even what we consider our traditional phone numbers. But then my grandfather moved all of us down to Florida in the mid-60s, just because of the way our season was set up from June to October, wanted a warm weather place to work on the equipment. So here I am, age 5, and I'm performing in the stunt show. I'm driving a little go-kart at age 8. I'm driving a mini Indy car that was built for me by Evel Knievel's dad.
My God, wow.
Evel Knievel credits seeing my grandfather's stunt show in Butte, Montana, as the reason why he became a showman. So this connection to Evel Knievel. And so here you've got Senior, the chief, as we called him, my dad, Joey Jr., and myself. And I spent 20 years of my life on the road. There was a TV show, might predate you a little bit. I'm a little bit maybe on the more mature side, but a TV show called That's Incredible. And they came to see me in Harrington, Delaware. And at 14 years old, I stood on the side of a car while my dad drove it on 2 wheels. And I laughed to myself, because if I ever did that with my son in this day and age, they'd arrest me for child endangerment. It was a different time way back in then. But then I learned how to drive a car on 2 wheels. And so I was a traveling stuntman, and we would leave Tampa in June. We wouldn't come back till October. We would perform 4 or 5 shows a week. I had a truck driver's license. I knew how to drive a car carrier. I slept in a lot of truck stops and rest areas during this 20 years. But we were showmen, and that's what we would do. I was either in school or I was on the road. And it was interesting, when you're born into a family business, you just assume that's what your life is going to be. And so, really wasn't that interested in college, but my dad, and I give him a lot of credit, said, no, you're going to go to college. Now, I really don't apply myself, because I just assume I'm just going to go back to the family business. So if you're not going to apply yourself, I would recommend Gainesville, Florida. Okay. From what I remember, a lot of great football games, a lot of great parties. And I got through it, got my degree, got my finance degree. And I spent another year with the family, doing the stunt show and working in the offices. And at that point, after 20 years, I had this itch. I needed to do something else. I needed to show everyone that I could do, and I don't even know what it was at that point, but something different. I felt like I had done everything I needed to for the family. So I decided to go back to school to get a graduate degree and get an MBA. And that's a little bit when I flipped the switch of, okay, game on. All right. There's no safety net now. You've decided to leave the family. You've got to figure it out. And so I wanted to get involved in motorsports management. I felt like my experiences over a couple decades, out there, I guess I would say hustling, I was out there in the business, would serve me well. So I sent a couple resumes out in the summer of 1995. I think the cost of a stamp was 32 cents back then. So to be honest, I'm probably sitting here in front of you today because of a 32-cent stamp that got put on an envelope in which my resume was in, that I sent to Tony George, who was the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. His family had owned the Speedway since after World War II. And he said, I have an opportunity, let's talk. And he hired me to help open up Walt Disney World Speedway in 1996. So I had a 3-month gig. And here I show up. I got a finance degree. I've got an MBA. I've got 20 years in the business. I am ready to solve the world's problems. So I've got to carry TVs up the grandstands to race control. Mind you, it's not like the flat screens. We're talking the old tube TVs. I have to take a break about halfway up the stands because I'm sweating so much. It's so heavy. I got to move the outside medical equipment into the inside first aid care center. I've got to be there at 5 a.m. to sign in credentials for people who are showing up for testing that day. But at the end of the day, you put your head down and you work hard and you do what you're supposed to do. And I was offered a full-time job to move to Indianapolis, and I became the manager of administration for the Indy Racing League. And I dealt with contracts and prize money, parking, credentials. I always joked it was everything no one had enough of. They always wanted more. And after 3.5 years, the Holman George family partnered with the France family to build a racetrack in Joliet, Illinois. And at that point, I'm like, you know what? I'm interested. So I put my name in, and next thing I know, I'm on a plane down to Daytona to meet Tony's partner, the France family, Bill France Jr., who, by the way, had rejected my resume a number of years before in the summer of 95. And here I am meeting him. By the way, Bill Jr. knew my family, knew my grandfather, knew my son, knew my dad, but he didn't let me off the hook. He was peppering me with questions, how you do this, what's the deal, this, that. And ultimately, I was announced the VP GM of the Chicagoland Speedway. And we had 2 years to build a 75,000 seat, 1.5 mile speedway in Joliet, Illinois. Ran it for the first 2 years, had a chance to go back to Indianapolis and actually be a senior VP, and then was promoted to president. And so here I am, a younger person than I am now, obviously, president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a place that my grandfather raced 50 years prior. And so from the family connection component, you're just like, how does this happen? I mean, if there's a luckier person than me, I don't know who it is, because this is something that I never imagined, driving that car carrier and going to racetracks in Honesdale, Pennsylvania, or Penn National, in Minersville, or Sealands Grove. And, here I am running the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So, at that point, it's kind of pinch me. This is still a dream. And I spent 7.5 years there. Got to plan the 100th anniversary of the property, some really fun things. Had some interesting F1 experiences. Also brought in MotoGP, but really was so excited to have that logo on my chest and to represent an iconic property. I always felt like I was a caretaker. So for me, I was just I was holding it together, making sure I'd leave it in better shape than when I found it, and I handed it to the next person that had the opportunity to do that. Decided I was ready to kind of go back to Florida, born and raised in Tampa, based out of down there. Wanted my son to maybe be connected to the family more so in terms of as he's grown up. So the folks from Daytona gave me a ring, and next thing you know, I'm down in the Daytona NASCAR world. Again, pretty funny, the fact that I got a rejection letter in 95, and here I am running the Daytona International Speedway. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. And I know that you're taking up a lot of time, but this is the fun stuff, please. Right? So here we go. February 20th, 1969, I'm born in Tampa, Florida. And my mom is on her own. My dad is not in Tampa. He's too busy racing a car at the Daytona International Speedway. So now I'm the president of Daytona, and my dad, was racing a car there. And by the way, we owned, as a family, 30 seats at the Daytona International Speedway. So when I got there and I took my first picture as the president, I sat in one of my dad's seats for the nice little beauty shot that we use for all the press material. And so I got to be there for 10.5 years. Ultimately, after managing the $400 million renovation, recreating the entire front stretch, creating what we called the first and only motorsports stadium, I was promoted to chief operating officer for International Speedway Corporation. That was the France family public company that owned 12 of the racetracks. And ultimately, I was responsible for 12 venues that hosted 20 of the NASCAR Cup races, in addition to a bazillion other events. And, after, if I total that all up, it's more than 20 years in the business. I had a moment in time where the company was going to go private. The family was going to take it back private. I'd been a corporate officer of the company for 10 years, a chief operating officer. And I thought this was the moment to finally catch my breath. And I'm going to take some Joey time. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to play some golf. And I've been messing around with golf forever, never took lessons, played as a teenager. I just like the peaceful, quiet golf course green, no concrete, none of that stuff, no roaring engines. And so I said, I'm going to just do that. So 2 months, practiced, played, got the handicap from a 16 to a 12. And then I get back into the business and I start to work for the Arnold Palmer family. And what was really interesting is in all of these stops along the way, my own family business, the Holman Georges, the France family, then the Palmer family, I'd only ever worked for family businesses. I understood 100% the pressure you feel when your family name is on the wall and what it's like to represent your patriarch. For me, it was my grandfather. For Amy Palmer Saunders, it was her dad, Arnold Palmer.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's all about understanding how you preserve, protect, and perpetuate that family brand, that family name. And so connected there for about 2.5 years and enjoyed it so much. I actually still have my ticket stub from 1992 when I skipped class and I went to the Nestle Invitational at Bay Hill. That's the name of it back then. I think Amy was pretty impressed that I actually had my ticket stub. I'd born and raised in Tampa, sneak over. It always appreciated that event and what Mr. Palmer meant to sport. It was my appreciation for those that really created the sport. If you ask me right now, my favorite race car drivers, it's AJ Foyt, it's Mario Andretti, it's a Rick Mears, those individuals who were so iconic in their sport. And then in golf, it was Arnold Palmer, a person who was so impactful. And so for me, again, how am I this lucky? I'm now working for the Arnold Palmer family. I get to wear an Arnold Palmer Invitational shirt and represent that brand, that venue. And then here I am for the PGA Tour. And it was a real easy call. Hey, Joey, would you like to join the team and put on the biggest President's Cup in history of the PGA Tour? Well, I mean, how do you say no to that? We get one chance at this life. We're riding this roller coaster. Let's go in all the way. And I got shipped up to Chicago. But in the meantime, the tour was having these opportunities to jump in and take back a Palm Beach event or this Truist event. And so I became a guy that could parachute in and jump in and figure out how we run an event, get connected to the community, have a little bit of fun. And so here I am now, two jobs, the Truist Championship, and that'll be May of this year. But then I'll go back to my Chicago President's Cup gig, which will be fall of 26. And so at the end of the day, there's a long-winded way to give you a little bit of my history. But I'm just a lucky person that I've had a chance to be part of really special, iconic sporting events. And the fact that I get to help set the stage so that our fans can be just so impressed, wowed, you name it, with golf and athletic achievement that we can only dream about, right? That I think, for me, I think when you're growing up, you either want to be a professional athlete or a rock star, right? Those are kind of the two paths you take. So I didn't get to be either, but I got to be in sports for my career, and I got to be part of some really special, iconic things. And I could, by the way, at some point, I've got to write the book. I've got some stories along the way of a unique experience with athletes, with celebrities. I've got a Jim Neighbors story, Gomer Pyle, that is just, for me, it was surreal. But again, along the way, you learn that most folks are pretty normal. You know what I mean? And they're good people and they think about the right things. And so just happy that I got to be part of so many special teams that pulled off some amazing events. And we're going to do it here. We've got an amazing team, a number of PGA Tour executives from other tournaments. We're all jumping in together. And I will tell you, the team is hopping. We're after it. We're all fired up to make sure this comes across like it should be, which is a phenomenal event that really candidly lives up to the history, the heritage that the Philadelphia Cricket Club has. I mean, we take that serious. That's a great venue. We got to make sure this event and the experience our fans have lives up to kind of their brand in market. So I'll take a break there because I probably have worn you out a little bit. But golf, racing, you name it, let's go get it done and jump in and have a little fun.
Yeah, so it's really does sound like, and it's interesting when you even go back even a year, right? The Continental Classic shows up, formerly the Honda, looking for a new sponsor, looking for a new way to bring this event out. And I say it on the show all the time, this is the most underrated stretch of golf that we have. Once you get to the Florida swing, the Honda's, the now Cognizant, incredibly challenging golf course. You're going to go to the Valspar, also an incredibly challenging course, and then mesh all of that in together. Bay Hill, the Players, the Masters is 60 days away, less than that, which is crazy to think about too. It's you nurtured and took care of an event that needed the help for 1 year, and now it's gotten back on its feet. You're taking another event with a brand new sponsor, getting it on its feet, ready to go, nurturing it for a 1 year period before it can finally go back to Quail Hollow once again. And then, of course, the President's Cup, like you had mentioned, of course, you're handling that at Medina next year, an event that it's certainly not a Ryder Cup, but has the potential to be at the same level, and it's only been growing. We've only had, what 12, 13 of them in the past. So to be able to have another one and have it be just grow, you're taking the caretaker role once again to another level for both of these.
30-year history of the President's Cup. And so pretty interesting when you think about the passion for golf internationally, right? Non-Europe countries. And Quail Hollow in 2022 was the largest to date at that point. And then in Montreal, it was the largest international one we had actually put on. And so with Medina, been around 100 years, just finished a $25 million renovation of course number 3. We are lined up. And when you think about supporting the USA in Chicago, holy smokes, it is a raucous sports town. I would say it would give Philly a good run for its money in terms of who's more raucous and cheers on their teams to success. So for me, I'm just so excited. I've attended events at Medina before, and so I was at Quail. I'm just so fired up to be part of unique sporting events that people have a passion for. And so if you haven't figured it out, I'm a little bit energetic. I do appreciate the chance to be part of special things. And if you can't be excited about that, what the heck can you be excited about? I mean, sports is just so transformational for all of us. It's the I remember when. I was there when I saw so-and-so do something that was phenomenal, or just the chance to teach our kids sports, right? And such a great family bonding moment. Sports is just something that should be part of everyone's life. As a fan, as someone who does it for recreation, or something you teach your kids, you name it. And by the way, should come to the event at Truist Championship, because kids can have a great time, because 15 years and younger are in for free with a paid adult. So kids can enjoy it. But you know what? If you're a golf aficionado, if you appreciate great golf courses, you should come here to see how the pros attack it. And by the way, for those that just want to have a fun time at an event, right, just be part of the cheering and rooting people on, we cater to everyone. And I will tell you, it's how I've enjoyed my life. You know what I mean? The fact I know about my ticket stub to the 1992 Nestle Invitational, I actually have kept almost every ticket stub of every event I've ever been to, be it concerts or sports. And for me, I look back at them and it brings me such great memories of experiences. Like, this was an event that I took my son to. This was his first baseball game. Or, here's something I did. This was my first concert as a 16-year-old, John Mellencamp in Lakeland at the Lakeland Civic Center. So, for me, all those things just represent great memories. And living your life to the fullest, and you better do that by getting out there, having fun, attending events, and making sure you enjoy yourself.
If no one takes anything else from this interview, it's absolutely that. Just live your life to the fullest. Let's get into the nitty gritty, all the good stuff that everyone's really curious about with the golf course. Thank you, by the way, for giving us your history. I'm blown away by the intertwining, the spider web that has been your life and everywhere that you've been. Absolutely insane. So looking at the course itself, we had talked when we chatted last week with local media, and I had asked you this question, and you kind of beat around a little bit on it. So I'm going to ask you again. Hopefully we can seek you out. Okay. So when selecting the Philadelphia Cricket Club, I'm curious because there aren't any really events outside of the Travelers that comes up to the Northeast. They used to have the Northern Trust every now and then. That dropped off. The Barclays then since dropped off as well. So it's really only lucky scenarios, like for example, the Ryder Cup we're going to get. We'll have the U.S. Open next year at Shinnecock, and then Winged Foot again a few years later. You don't really get the opportunity to come to New York, Philadelphia, Boston, those main markets. Was Philadelphia or just the Northeast in general the main priority for the tour, or what other locations or cities were in contention that were under thought of, hey, this would be a great spot to bring the tour back to?
Well, I think first and foremost, we felt that golf was underserved in Philadelphia. I mean, you look at the size of the market, right? We can argue number 4, number 5. It's a big market with a lot of sports team, a lot of energy here. Okay. Now you look at the venues, and yes, you've got some classic courses in Aronimink or Marion. Those are in the USGA rotation. Okay. So they've kind of got their plan. Every 5, 6, 7 years, they host one big event. But the Philadelphia Cricket Club, based on what we saw back in 2015 with hosting their event, kind of started getting on everybody's radar. And so for us, we've got to find a 1-year stop from quail. Northeast, we feel is underserved. Philadelphia, goodness gracious. And then all of a sudden, Philadelphia Cricket Club hosted a senior event in 2015 that kind of caught our attention. And so it's been on the radar, but we've never had an event to move. We never had an open slot to even approach the market for an annual event. But when this started playing out, it was, wait a second, this could be the moment in time. Matt Rapp, who hired me, he was instrumental in recommending this as a choice. And then from there, once the energy started picking up, you've got to have some people really say, we're in. And with the conversion of Truist taking on the event, now their HQ is in Charlotte, but when we said, here's what we're thinking about, they love the market. For them, they view this as a big market for them. Then, to be honest, it was a pretty good conversation with the leadership at the Philadelphia Cricket Club, Tom Sheridan, Jim Smith. It was, again, we were presenting the right kind of event that would make the cricket club proud, that could work. You had mentioned earlier about a major level venue, right? And I do think the cricket club is that. But what I think about it is it's an intimate major style event. Just from the footprint and everything else, it would be unbelievably challenging to have a 140 person field. That just is so difficult for us based on the size constraints. But top 70, no cut. They play all 4 days. So you get to come to this event and you get to follow your favorite golf around for all 4 days. You don't have to worry about the cut. You're going to go off in twosomes. Okay, we're going to go off the first tee. We're not going to do doubles, 1 and 10. So there's all these advantages to the experience, but ultimately it'd been on our radar. Mid-Atlantic, Northeast isn't overserved. Philadelphia, goodness, there's a lot of good stuff here. It almost just kind of took a life of its own. And then I will just say the conversation with Cricket Club was very quick, and everybody was on board, and we immediately executed as quick as we could. So I don't think there was anything. No magic bottle per se. It just had been on the radar. We always want to look for some unique golf courses as well. Now think about this. We have TPC courses, in this part of the country. And so those are events or venues that are owned by the tour or licensed by the tour, but a chance to go to a course that might not get to host an event again, and something that has been around so long with a Tillinghast classic design. This is where our golfers also start to get excited, because this is unique for them.
Yeah.
They're going to play a course in competition they normally don't get to play and might not ever play. So, there's an ego here at play. You get to play a unique course, but who wants to be the maybe the only winner of the PGA Tour stop at the Philadelphia Cricket Club? So we started to hear some pretty good rumblings from the rank and file of the tour players. That, hey, that's a pretty good venue. Like, hey, wait a second, what's going on? So I think that's how all the pieces got together. But it was really spurred by two things: the fact that Quail was hosting a major this year, and we needed to find another location. Okay, and part two was a new title. With Truist coming aboard. So those two things really allowed us to kind of step back, take a broader view of it, and ultimately, hey, we've always looked at Philly. What are we thinking? And that's how it kind of came to be. So I'd love to tell you there was anything more to it. It's just 2015 on the radar. We're out there waiting for an opportunity, and this one just seemed to work out perfectly.
Was the Tillinghast design a huge draw? Obviously, the big time major events that we mentioned earlier, constantly Donald Ross, Tillinghast, Alistair McKenzie. The name just stands out on its own. You could go to a random club in the middle of nowhere, but the Tillinghast course, all of a sudden, the level is just way higher.
For sure. And not just the design itself, but his history with the cricket club.
Yeah.
He was a member. He and all of those other famous Philadelphia designers, Crump, who did Pine Valley. They hung out at the cricket. This was their home. They hung out here, and they were designing courses all around. So that just adds to the character and charm of the Philadelphia Cricket Club, which makes the cricket club up here in terms of why you'd want to be there. For me, getting to know the history of it through Tom Sheridan, the president, checking out the course. But I love on member 18, you walk down the hill. It's a dogleg left, and you hit it down the hill. You walk down there, and you have that big rock right next to the bridge that goes over the Wissahickon Creek. There's a plaque there that talks about Tillinghast and the fact they scattered his ashes in the Wissahickon Creek right there on 18 fairway. That history, those are the things that are authentic. That really makes a venue unique and different. And again, there's great courses being built everywhere, right? But how many can say they've been around for as long as the cricket club, a noted designer, and candidly, it looks phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
Just the look and the feel screams history to you. And it's like, oh, you're walking on hallowed ground. I mean, this place has got some character to it. And I think that's part of it too. It truly has that vibe. The clubhouse, this intimate, comfortable experience. It's not one of these new bright, shiny glass and steel. It's got that vibe of you've arrived when you show up there. So I think all those things go together, and it makes it so unique for us. I will say the passion the members have for this event and how proud they are that they're having it. I did 100 member meetings the first 2 weeks I was in town. I think on a Sunday, I did 7 member meetings, 3 in person at the club. The membership couldn't have been more accommodating, whether they wanted to purchase hospitality, whether they wanted to introduce me to someone, or just want to talk about how excited they are that they get to host a PGA Tour event. And I think that's phenomenal. When you can get that alignment, that buy-in, I'm already excited as is. You get a membership that's excited with me, man, we're going to do this thing. We're going to take that hill and we're going to make it really special. And I think that's the fun for our team as well, to see the energy from the cricket club staff and members as to their wanting to be part of something special. And you put those together, I think the tour players are going to feel it when they arrive. They're going to know they're at a special venue. It's a special event. And I hope there's some real emotion and energy about who gets to hoist that trophy over their head on Sunday when they've capped off a phenomenal final round to win it.
From the local engagement and players that are involved, of course, everybody, there's been, again, this feeling of very excitedness. Like, hey, when's the calendar going to flip over to May? We can get to this event. What have some of the players said? What have local members that you've talked to, whether it be from charities or organizations involved, the cricket club, of course, and then even just like local fans, if you happen to gauge other folks, what are they saying? What's their intrigue? And what can people going to the event kind of expect in terms of bringing that local Philadelphia hospitality and that brotherly love flair to the event?
Well, first off, I've quit asking who's got the best cheesesteaks in Philadelphia. I've already sampled 7 or 8. They're all fantastic. I've yet to find anyone that isn't good, but we will have some local Philadelphia food products on property. It will have a Philly vibe for sure. And so that's the fun part. We create fan zones and areas where fans can take a break and engage and catch up. And we usually anchor them with a local community product. We do that at Charlotte. We do that at Palm Beach. And it's fun to kind of pull in these local vendors to showcase it. We want this to feel like a Philadelphia event. And food is always an element to that. I think what was interesting in, reaching out to the community and getting to know folks, I would call out 2 organizations that for me were very impressive. One, First Tee organization. I got to engage with a number of First Tee chapters. That was created by Tim Fincham, a former PGA Tour commissioner back in the day. And there's chapters all across the United States. I've worked with them in Chicago and Palm Beach and Orlando. I am so impressed with the First Tee organization of Philadelphia. The fact that they're operating 2 golf courses for the city of Philadelphia, one being Walnut Lane, that, by the way, they booked 40,000 rounds there. They've turned that thing into a phenomenal demand. It's crazy. They also did their own capital campaign and built their own clubhouse at Walnut Lane that includes classroom space for their students and things like that. I'm just so impressed with that accomplishment from a First Tee chapter. You don't see First Tee chapters running golf courses, running munis for the cities that they're in. And Bill Hyman, that team is phenomenal. But again, that showed me, wow, they're at a different level than maybe other First Tee chapters. It again kind of clicks the box of there's a lot of support for a First Tee, a golf charity, if you will, in this market. The other one was I got to spend a day with Enrique Hervada, the COO of Cobb's Creek, which is an unbelievable project on the west side of Philadelphia. Golf course, a public course that had been built a long time ago, noted designers, but really had fallen in disrepair and hadn't been used since 2020. And by the way, after 4 or 5 years, you drive out there, it doesn't look like a golf course anymore. I mean, it looks like a forest. But think about what they're doing, raising money to recreate this classic golf course. But in the meantime, Tiger Woods has actually built the Tiger Woods Learning Center on their property. It's his only East Coast venue. Now, he did that because of the history with Charlie Sifford and that connection point being in Philadelphia. And also then just kind of connecting to the community and offering that opportunity to help make people's lives better, to make a difference. And they're doing it at Cobbs Creek. And so very impressed with the dollars they've raised. They still have some room to go. But once they're done and then they renovate that course, that will be a phenomenal course. That will be, dare I say, Bethpage Black-like, that kind of public venue, but it's got real chops. I mean,
Awesome.
Like real chops, unbelievable elevation. So if you were to just, from a golf perspective, those two entities and organizations, the success they're seeing, the passion they have for golf, what they stand for to make a difference, very impressive. And so that's those. You could tell all of the companies that have purchased hospitality. I mean, it was, I felt like it was almost not easy, or they just were so energetic about wanting to support an event that not only is a professional golf event, but ultimately makes a difference in people's lives. Part of the PGA Tour, we love the charitable donations that come with our sporting events. So the fact that by participating, you're helping us ultimately make a donation or recognize people who are so instrumental in making people's lives better in this community. And that's a fun message to talk about. That's a fun thing about our sports programming that we do, that it actually has that element to it. So for me, at all levels like that, whoever we talked to was energized. They were someone who was in the community making a difference. And the fact that some of them were actually already connected to golf just made it so much easier for us to, I guess I say within like a month, I felt like I had been here a long time, and I already felt like I was part of it. And I already learned these great stories where I could actually understand, wow, this is what they do. Let's work with them. How do we come up with a plan? We're going to actually have, we will have 50 young people from the First Tee organization, and they will be standard bearers during our event. So they're going to walk around and just think about, they're going to be able to hold the scoring thing that'll actually have Rory McIlroy score, or Xander Schauffele, or Patrick. And so for us, the chance to engage those young people and make a difference with them, where they get to be inside the ropes and keep the score of professional golfers, and they're in the First Tee program. That's just one of a number of programs that we've already instituted. We'll be making a food donation after the tournament. We're going to recognize some hometown heroes. We've already made some community grants to 4 or 5 First Tee organizations, not just in Pennsylvania, but in New Jersey as well. So I think for us, we love to affect at every level, charitable, sports, media, you name it. We want to celebrate what we've got and make sure everybody enjoys it and has a good time. But when we leave, people say, wow, they made a difference in our community.
For the folks that will be attending, of course, the beauty of being able to be in Philadelphia, of course, you're always going to see, like you said, your hometown heroes and people who are engaging into the community. Any sort of celebrity engagement, any people who have been really charged and intrigued by this, of course, obviously, ton of, you ask some of our guys here, like plenty of golf fans across all the major sports in Philadelphia, particularly with the Eagles, of course. Their huge run, incredible stuff from them. So who else has been kind of engaged in and back to you guys so far from the famous kind of scale?
So I would say this: we've had athletes from all of the major sports reach out to us and would love to participate in some form or fashion if their schedule allows. Maybe some retired athletes, definitely some current athletes. And so I don't want to let the cat out of the bag just because I don't want to mention an athlete who ultimately their schedule didn't work or we couldn't sort it out. But we will have some fun with some professional athletes on property. I think what's interesting and what was a good lesson for me, the Philadelphia Cricket Club hosts the big Philadelphia Phillies golf tournament. And it's where they bring all their legends out. And so this last summer, I learned, and they take every inch of the course. And I think they even had Mike Schmidt there, obviously a
cool.
significant legend of the, but the cricket club is actually well known in the sports industry here because of some of the events they do for some of those big sports teams. So, for us, again, it's kind of interesting when you have the athletes reaching out to us that they'd like to participate and be part of it. But that's the cool factor, right? One-off, unique cricket club, PGA Tour. Man, who doesn't want to be involved in something like that and have some fun with it? And so we'll have some fun. We'll actually probably pull some snippets together, do some media clips with it, and we'll figure out the right way to engage them. I will say this though, the Philadelphia Cricket Club, it's for us amateurs and the professional athletes, it's a true test. I mean, there's no messing around. I mean, if you're not a single digit handicap, you're going to walk off that course and you're going to feel tested. That's for sure. It gives you all that you want. So we'll have some fun with our athletes, but we'll also make sure that the course kind of gives them a little bit of a run for their money.
I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer, but of course, with every single planning of a event, there has to be some sort of a challenge that comes into play. What were some of the challenges that your teams faced so far and possibly even now are actively trying to overcome as we're only 2 months away from the event?
So, weather. Look, it's been a tough January. Yeah. And so we're building now. Love this week, great weather this week. So we're hustling, but a lot of snow on the ground. It's tough to build structure. And so we definitely want our venues to be built prior to the course reopening on April 1st. So because it's really difficult to do that while the course is in play for the members. So our goal was to get it done in advance. So January is tough. We're making up ground. We might have been behind a bit, but I feel really good about the forecast over the next month. And let's just hope that March is as good as February. But January was a
rough.
A lot of snow on the ground, a little tough. So that's always your number one issue, right? Of doing that. For us also pulling all the collateral together to actually show to someone, here's what a Valley suite looks like. Here's what a Boathouse Rose suite looks like. This is what the 1854 lounge is. 2 stories on top of the highest point. You overlook the 17th green and the 18th tee box. Oh, by the way, you get 2 other holes on the other side as well. Mm-hmm. But to actually create imagery that shows what that might look like. So we've literally had to, virtually create the venue and then place it on the actual map to show someone this is where you can entertain 16 people, 30 people, or if you want to go big, you can entertain 60 people. So getting that created and done to the level that we want it, and then to sit down and go to market with its members or public, we had to hustle because with only 10 months, it's not a long window of time. And so getting the creative folks to really get that looking good. And to be honest, it's got to look good because of the type of event we are. If we're going to go to market, our creative has to reflect how awesome the on-site experience is going to be. And so everything is about speed. I would not recommend if you're a person that is not flexible and likes things really buttoned up and easy to do, getting a golf tournament handed to you 10 months before the event is not the choice for you. You've got to just be willing to go with it. You got to be nimble. You got to be flexible. Change is part of your daily diet. If you got to pivot, and you got to move, because we just don't have a lot of time to debate and discuss. And if that one didn't work, let's figure out the other solution and let's go, because we would run out of time. And so with 67 days to go, or give or take at the time we're doing this taping, we have to move fast. And so I'll share a racing quote, one of my favorites. Okay. And this is kind of something that I think I bring to the table that makes sense. So Mario Andretti, famed race car driver, only man to ever win the Indy 500, the Daytona 500, and a Formula One World Championship. No one else will ever do that. He said, if things seem like they're under control, you're just not going fast enough. And so you want to go fast. You want to finish in first place. You got to put it on the edge and drive as fast as you can. And so I think we have a great team that knows we got to move fast. We don't have a lot of time on the clock. Let's move fast. Let's get it done. We can sit back and enjoy and celebrate on Monday after the tournament when we pulled off just a hell of a run over the 10 months that we were given to make this happen. So got to go fast. Got to finish in first place, and don't let anyone pass you.
The crew chief and his pit crew just keep on rolling. Love to hear it. A couple things before I let you go. I've held you for so long, but honestly, I can go for hours on end just chatting all this up. A couple things. Number one, your ultimate goal by May 6th. We tee off on Thursday. What do you want seen done? What do you want completed? What's something that is above and beyond expectation that day one you wanted to achieve and that you hopefully will?
Anytime you can say that you're sold out, it's such a great moment in time. It just shows the support that you have for the event, the hard work you put into it, that people responded and want to be part of it. So, the first 3 hours when we went on sale with grounds admission tickets, we sold 1,000 tickets in 3 hours. That makes me feel like we're going to be sold out, and we still have 2 months to go. And so that's a real positive. I mean, that's just a sense of accomplishment for everyone. I think for me, if you then kind of qualitatively, right, you quantitatively, you want to sell X, you want to do this, you want to do all these things, I want to make sure, and there's so many different ways to enjoy an event, experience an event, follow around your favorite golfer, whether he's under par or over par, doesn't really matter. I just want fans to leave and feel like they were treated to something special. And it was special because of the effort, everything that we put into it to make it special. There's a team that cares about what this event can do for the community, the impression it leaves, and hopefully it inspires people to do great things. When you see athletic achievement, you think to yourself, can I do that? Can I push myself to be that great? And on all levels, can I make a difference in my community? That person's a hometown hero for that charity. We recognize them. Does that inspire people to actually help other charities or make a difference? You just want to know that you had an impact in the community at whatever level that you define as success for you. I just want to make sure that when we leave here, we made an impact and that people felt good that we actually did something special. We didn't just put on a sporting event per se. We made a difference in this community, and people are better for it.
One final thing before I let you go. What's the best sports ticket stub that you have?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. That's not an easy question for me because of my family and some other things. Look, I would say this. I backpacked Europe when I was in college for a little bit, got to spend some time over there. I did get to go to Wimbledon. So that's amazing. A good one. Okay. That was a kind of a unique one that I did. I've gotten to go to some international sporting events. I would say that, look, Masters is pretty good. So got to enjoy that event. And I've done a couple Super Bowls. I'm a fan of sports, but I will tell you, if you want to really break it down, I've had a chance to do some trips with my son, and we did a Chicago trip in which we went to a Cubs game and a Notre Dame game.
That's awesome.
We went to Baltimore and we did a Baltimore Orioles game. We went to Gettysburg and we did an Air Force at Navy game. We went to New York City and we ran around the city. We got on a ferry and it took us up to West Point, and we got off the boat at West Point, walked up the hill to watch Air Force at Army. So
that's awesome.
I like to do some of the other events too, the cool ones that maybe aren't as, Super Bowl like. And so, maybe you and I should just do a podcast. I'll pull out a ticket stub and we can tell a story about what this event was and where it was. And it'll be a bit of a crapshoot. We'll just reach in I have a big cylinder with all the ticket stubs in there, and we'll do it there. Probably go into the Indy 500 when I was in high school for the first time, and my grandfather was still alive, and they were honoring all the living members of the 1946 race. That probably had a significant impression upon me about what he really did, and got to experience and be there, as a 15-year-old. So again, if we had another hour, I'd go through more sporting events, but what a great question to end on. To be honest, I'm going to be thinking about this tonight a lot now. So, but really good stuff. And again, so many great experiences with family, friends, sporting events. But if you have a chance to go do it, go do it. Go attend them all. Go to every single one you can.
And go as fast as you can, because if things are steady, you're going too slow. Joey, Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it so much. I would love to have you back on, have other folks within your team back on as you get closer to the event. Obviously, ton of excitement around from everybody here at Underground Sports to local folks in the Philly area. Everybody that I know is just jazzed to be able to experience golf in Philadelphia once more. So once again, Joie Chitwood, Executive Director of the Truist Championship. Joey, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it, and hopefully we'll have you on soon.
Love it. Thank you.
Welcome back into Getting the Hole. Final segment right here, our beer money picks. Shout out to Joie Chitwood for the great interview. It was an absolute awesome time getting to chat with him. But, of course, we got to focus in on our favorite betting spots of the week with our beer money plays presented by Kenwood Beer. Wow. After a long interview, I could really use a good cracked open Kenny, right? Kenwood Beer, who is he? He is the best light, refreshing beer on the planet, and you can get your hands on the best low carb, low calorie, only 120 calories, delicious beer. As Donald Trump would say, it's the best. It's the absolute best. You can get your hands on some ice cold Kenwood Beer from your favorite liquor stores in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware, and as well as the Wells Fargo Center and beyond. Go to the Kenny Tracker on their website, kenwoodbeer.com, and get searching today. Must be 21 years and older to consume. And of course, please drink responsibly. Of course, if you're gambling with us, please gamble responsibly as well. A couple of notes going into the Arnold Palmer this week. Of course, signature event, 70-man field, no cut line this week. We've seen a lot of previous winners, some diverse winners, including 2 times from Scotty Scheffler in the last 4 years. Can Scotty dominate once more? Ben, you're down by 3.
Yeah, I'm aware. I hate this game.
Yeah, you've been laying goose eggs the last 2 weeks, possibly the last 3 weeks. Honestly, it has not been pretty for you. What are you thinking this week going in? Out of curiosity.
I'm not really thinking a whole lot, to be honest. So, there's when you're losing, there's, well, they always say when you practice, practice smarter, not harder. Well, we've been trying to practice smart and it hasn't really been working. So we're just going to go with the practice harder mentality or whatever it's called. So look, the fact that I have to already play in a freaking dress in a public setting is going to be one of the most it's going to be a tough moment for me. And all I can do is just make sure that my legs look phenomenal. And that all I can do is, in the event that I end up having to just basically punt on this season because I am not feeling confident right now based on my current performances in beer money. I can eat a lot of pancakes, man. You've seen me eat. I can eat a lot. So
Ben's diving in headfirst into the trust the process rebuild for this year. He's gonna throw the year, acquire some draft picks, and hopefully.
I'm going full on Philadelphia 76ers at this point. Just tank and pray at this point.
Hoop for coop, sag for flag, baby.
At this point, I'm gonna be like the Sacramento Kings, just completely just in a never-ending. You're even like the Bulls, just a never-ending rebuild. The
New York Jets,
the Miami Marlins. Yeah,
there you go.
It's science, whatever.
It's all right though. Down 3. You haven't had a win since 2 weeks ago with a Patrick Cantlay top 5. Can you overcome at the API top 20?
Oh Lord, I'm gonna go with Maverick McNeely for top 20.
I love it. Top 20 for me. I'm going all off course history, and there's a lot of names who are actually really interesting this week. But I have delegated myself to Keegan Bradley for a top 20 this week at plus 135. Really strong course history as I pull up those numbers. Most of the guys here who I'm taking have had really good results in recent years. Keegan Bradley, believe it or not, dating back to 2016, an average finish of 27th, which doesn't sound great on paper, but in 3 of his last 4 outings at Bay Hill, 10th, 11th, 10th, and 36th. So plus 135, I will take Keegan Bradley to the bank. Top 10, who you got?
Give me Victor Hovland for a top 10 finish. I think he's starting to figure it out. Last year was kind of a weird year for him. But remember, 2 years ago, he did win the FedEx Cup by a lot. So I'm going to bet Victor Hovland at a course that he has had success at.
Yeah, Victor Hovland, 2 of the last 3 years, despite finishing 36 last year, finished second, runner-up to only Scotty Scheffler, and finished 10th 2 years ago as well. Top 10 for me, this guy hasn't shown me any sort of glimmer of hope, so this is kind of a Hail Mary pick for me, but his course history here is just phenomenal. He's been playing this course ever since 2016. He's finished since 2017, 13th, 100th, 2nd, 9th, 10th, 9th, 14th, and last year he finished 100th, or AKA just missed the cut. I'm going to go with Matt Fitzpatrick at plus 360. Again, hasn't really had a good year at all. He's been playing. He's been a little bit rugged, honestly, ever since he won the U.S. Open. He had a really good run two years ago when he was one of the best players in the world. It hasn't been the same over the last 12 months for Fitz. But again, the course history here fits great. I think the possibilities are endless if he can have a solid week like he usually does. Top 5.
Top 5, I'm going to go with Ludwig Oberg, one of the most skilled golfers on tour, tee to green. Ludwig, man, I need you big time. Can you please just throw me a bone? I'm going full on desperation right now.
I dig it. It's totally okay. I understand. And honestly, a good pick here. Can definitely see Ludwig winning the whole thing. I'm going to go. It's crazy how, like, when you get to the top of the odds board here, even for a loaded field like this with some of the names that are in the field, how he's plus 150 to finish top 5. That's just how confident they are in him. And I don't know if I can not take Vegas in this case. He has the highest average finish amongst anybody in the field with more than 5 events played here. The only guy who has a higher number, who's only played 4 times, is Scotty Scheffler. I'm going to go Rory McIlroy for a top 5. Truthfully, with how he played at Pebble, I think he could very much win this week, and I think he's the only player in the field who could beat Scotty Scheffler this week. And that's solely on vibes. I think this year has been a little bit strange because a lot of the guys who have played events, like the top names, have not played very much. They've only played at the very most 2 events. And I'm not going to include this entry in that grouping. They played the Genesis at Torrey Pines, which played incredibly challenging, and half the guys didn't make the cut, or struggled to make the top half. Sorry, there was no cut. And they played at Pebble, which again, horrible conditions, and Rory won handedly that week. I haven't seen a lot from a lot of these guys to take down Scotty Scheffler, who still has 2 top 20s and 3 starts, including 2 top 10s. So I'll take Rory for a top 5. I think he's the one guy in the field who could upset Scotty. Your gimme pick this week.
I'm going to go with one of my favorite picks. I'm going to go with Lucas Glover for a top 40 finish.
Top 40? Wow.
Yeah.
I took Lucas last week for a top 10, and unfortunately he did me dirty. So hopefully he misses the cut. My gimme pick this week, I'm going to go, again, great course history here. Every time I've taken him, he's bitten me in the butt, but he has, in his career, never finished worse than 21st at this event, including back-to-back top 5 finishes, 19 and 20. I'm going to go Sungjae Im, top 20 plus 120 on the board. Love me some Sungjae. Also had a really great spot in full swing as well. We'll talk more about that next week, but Sungjae Im came for her top 20. Your winner this week at the API.
I know you're going to give me shit for this one, but I don't really care.
It's hard to not take him.
Plus 320 though. Those are those are solid odds. I mean, that there's value there. There is legitimate value there. So I'm going to go with Scotty Scheffler. I double checked to make sure that he didn't win this, that this wouldn't be a three-peat. If he did win, it wouldn't be, because I never like to pick guys who are going for three-peats. Mm-hmm. He won last year, finished, I believe, 4th the year before. I think he won the year before that. So he loves this golf course. He does not have a win this year. And so I think this is also the time of year where he starts to turn it on a little bit, Steve. And then he remembers who the boss is of the PGA Tour, which is Scotty Scheffler. So I'm going to go with Scotty Scheffler for the dub this week.
So I I want to revisit this for old time's sake because it always makes me laugh, right? 2022-23, his torrid run. First win came at the Waste Management, finished 12th at the Genesis, finished 4th at the API, won the Players, and that was it for his wins that year. But after that event, didn't finish any worse than one event. He finished 31st. Was the worst finish he had in 2022-23. Last year, in 2024, first win of the year came at the Arnold Palmer, then won the Players, finished second at the Houston Open, won the Masters, won the RBC Heritage, finished 8th at the PGA, second at the Schwab, won the Memorial, had a bit of an off week at Pinehurst, won the Travelers, won the Tour Championship, like holy Christ. Also go back to 21-22, that was his other big time swing. Won the Waste Management, so he went back to back there. 7th at the Genesis, won the Arnold Palmer, didn't play well at the Players, and then won his first Masters tournament. It's hard to not want to take Scotty Scheffler in this case, but because I have a buffer and I can afford to pick somebody who's a little bit more out of the bag, I will do so. It's funny, going into this pick, I was actually mulling over, instead of taking this player, I was going to take one of Rory McIlroy to win without Scotty, which for you avid bettors would mean that if Scotty Scheffler wasn't in the field, your bet would win if Rory finishes second. And that would have been a first in beer money history. I thought that would be too crazy and out of here. So instead, I will go outright. I'm going to ride with Justin Thomas this week to win the Arnold Palmer Invitational and get his first win at this event. Again, the course history fits him to an absolute T. As I look at his numbers, he's only played here twice. He's finished 21st and 12th last year. That was, of course, a 9-spot jump. By the same logic, he should finish top 3 this year. Also makes sense why he's so high in the field. But JT's had a really good run of things over the last 2 weeks. He's played the most out of most of the top players. Amongst players in the top 25, he is tied for second with the most events played with 5 so far this year. The only guy who's ahead of him is LIVGolf. So if you look at the idea of just guys who play tournaments, who are involved and want to play, JT is up there with the best of them. He's already seen the lows of the lows when he missed out on the opportunity to play in the FedEx Cup playoffs 2 years ago. He said that he's a better player because of that. And I think this is going to be a good spot for him to get a big win, his first win in a couple of years, and be able to get on track going into the Players, going into the Masters, where, again, he's favored right now to be a top 5 guy on the betting board for both of those events. So I'll ride with Justin Thomas at 25-1 at the API. Good show.
That was fantastic. Great episode. Steve and I had some fantastic banter back and forth. Great conversation today.
Yeah, it really was. It was
Ethan
was very
refreshing. Ethan looking fresh as hell with the beanie indoors. That's pretty badass right there. Kyle's
Ben,
back.
The hair, that you can't show the hair right now.
What's that?
No,
The hair's not good right now.
Are you also in the awkward phase of growing it out?
No, I just haven't had the chance to go to the haircut. So
Okay. So I'm actively growing my hair out.
Hey, man.
It's getting kind of long in the back now.
Wow.
It's
That is
there.
definitely awkward.
Yeah, well, hold on.
Lord have mercy.
When I unscruff it, right? Like here still
see,
isn't
this is why I had the
long enough,
beanie on.
back. I mean, your hair doesn't look that bad though. Like mine here, it's getting longer in the back. It's still it isn't long enough to push back, but this is this could fucking come down to my eyes. It's scary. So we're kind of sort of in the awkward stage of the hair. I think by late March I should be pretty good, and I'll have the flow in full effect. So we're looking forward to it.
Very nice. Well,
yeah.
we have you have a little bit of business to take care of, Steve. It looks like in the group chat. So
I do. I do indeed. Actually, Ben, there's one thing I wanted to ask you before we go. Okay. I don't know if it's just the shadow that's over your head, but are you growing your beard and mustache out at all? Because it looks like you got a little bit of mustache going.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I am.
I don't think I've ever seen you with a beard or any.
No, I've always been. Thank you, KB. KB just called me. For those of you watching or listening, KB just called me Scruff Daddy.
I'm Scruff Daddy. Come on.
No, you're not. But yes, no. So I'm keeping it kind of trimmed, like in the sides and stuff. But I'm gonna try to do like a little bit of a Jack Sparrow. You're right here by the mouth and everything. So I'm growing out the hair. I'm growing out the lettuce too. You know, I got to bring the flow back. It gets a little chilly here in Florida during the winter, so got to make sure you keep the back of the neck nice and warm.
You know, I can totally see you rocking the mustache like full time, like not like I don't know if you saw the photos of Keegan Bradley like a couple weeks ago, like how like he looked like a fireman with his mustache.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But like I think you could rock a good mustache. I don't know with the beard though. I'm
good of a
jawline.
The beard itself, I'm just trimming every day.
Yeah, you have too good of a jawline to have it be covered up by your by a beard.
Ooh, buy me dinner first, baby. My goodness gracious. I'm going to tell Kay about this one when I see her.
Oh, my God. Well, that's going to do it all for us here on episode 194 of Get in the Hole. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts at Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the like. Of course, subscribe and leave a comment on our live shows available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. Of course, the engagement really helps get the word out and get people and get eyeballs on the show. Vote in our polls. Check out our links and descriptions for all of our top sponsors, including Acorn Hills, Kenwood Beer, Paramount Plus, 47 Brand, and beyond. And of course, Underground Sports PHI on YouTube. Continue to get those subscriber counts soaring to the moon as we enter the peak of the golf season. Once again, for Ben Pirro, that's Ethan Hogan. I'm Steve McAvoy. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the golf. We'll be back for another big time week next time. Thanks for listening to Get in the Hole, the official golf podcast of Underground Sports Philadelphia. Catch us every week wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and be sure to like and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Get in the Hole Pod, and follow Underground Sports Philadelphia at Underground PHI. We'll see you next time. And remember, get in the hole!